You're watching Caribbean Today on YouTube. The recent Liberation Day announcement by President Donald Trump has certainly stirred a significant amount of discourse, especially in regard to its impact on the global economic system, and in particular on small and developing nations like those in the Caribbean. The world has been entering an era of trade that seems to be more arbitrary, protectionist, and potentially dangerous. And this shift raises profound questions about the future of globalization, free trade, and the role of multilateral institutions like the World Trade Organization, the WTO. Historically, the U.S. has championed the principles of free trade, and the system governed by the WTO has provided the infrastructure for this. Smaller economies, such as those in the Caribbean, have greatly benefited from this rules based system. Through the WTO, they have had a fair seat at the table, gaining access to global markets and enjoying the benefits of predictable, transparent trade rules. These policies have not been perfect, of course, and the U.S. itself has reaped major advantages, but overall, the system has fostered unprecedented stability for the global economy. However, recent imposition of tariffs on Caribbean nations, particularly those in the oil producing sector like Guyana and Trinidad, has sparked alarm. These tariffs, which can reach as high as 38%, threaten to destabilize economies that are still grappling with the after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and existing trade imbalances. The Caribbean, like many small developing nations, is heavily reliant on a few industries such as agriculture, tourism, and in the case of Guyana, emerging oil resources. The imposition of tariffs seems to ignore the vulnerability of these economies and disregards the broader context of their recovery efforts. The question of fairness in this new trade environment is critical. Tariffs, particularly when imposed unilaterally, often seem punitive rather than protective. The justification for these tariffs, rooted in claims of trade imbalances, raises broader concerns about whether this strategy undermines the very foundation of the WTO. The WTO was established to ensure that smaller nations are not dominated or unfairly penalized by the larger, more powerful economies. The fact that such punitive measures are being levied by the U.S. on small Caribbean nations challenges the essence of multilateral trade rules that were designed to prevent such outcomes. The Caribbean nations affected are not economic threats to the U.S. or the global economy, and yet the actions taken appear to disproportionately burden them, deepening their economic hardship amidst already challenging circumstances like global inflation, climate related disruptions, and the struggle for recovery post pandemic. These tariffs appear not only to be unfair trade practice, but also an action that exacerbates the very inequalities the WTO was created to address. Moreover, there is the question of whether the U.S. targeting specific nations like Guyana and Trinidad, both oil producers, might reflect broader geopolitical or economic motivations. The imposition of tariffs on oil exporting nations raises suspicions about whether these actions are truly motivated by concerns over trade imbalances or whether there are ulterior motives at play. If the U.S. is indeed singling out these countries, it would represent a departure from the principles of the WTO and could set a dangerous precedent for the future of international trade. What should the WTO do in this scenario? The organization's mandate has always been to ensure that trade is conducted on a fair and equitable basis. In the face of such unilateral actions, the WTO needs to take a stand to protect smaller economies and the stability of the global trade system. Silence in the face of these imbalances only erodes the credibility of the WTO and risks undermining the multilateral cooperation that has long been a hallmark of global trade. As we move forward into this new era of global trade, Caribbean leaders must not only be adaptive but proactive. The Caribbean's economic future is at a crossroads, and it is crucial for its leaders to navigate these challenges with foresight, diplomacy, and a commitment to ensuring that their nations continue to have a fair shot in the global economy. The WTO and the global trade system need to evolve to ensure that it remains just and fair for all. At CaribbeanToday.com, we cover your world.